So first thing I'm kind of watching for on Apple off the bat is what can it do first? Does it move 69 cents above the open first, or is it able to move, greater than $1.56 below the opening price? Because yesterday, those were the two things that kind of triggered the activity. Couldn't move greater than 69 cents above the open, and you ended up getting a bearish open. Google, nice gap. I'm thinking 840 to 850 is in play. Tomorrow, it's had a tendency of making these all-time highs on Fridays. So, kind of low volume here on Apple. Pre-market, usually it's traded over 100,000 shares by now. So, want to definitely watch those first 3 minutes and track the volume and see what the volume situation looks like. Because if it doesn't improve and the volume stays low, then the trading opportunities probably aren't going to be that great. Google 280 gap up to 835. Amazon, not much of a gap. Amazon just pretty flat. And what I spoke to at the very beginning, that 69 cent or $1.56, that's within the first 3 minutes. Salesforce not doing much. Chipotle nothing doing. Priceline, nice gap there on Priceline, but no real volume. Main stocks I prepared for today were Apple, Google, and Amazon. As far as Apple goes, on the bullish side, want to see can it close back-to-back 3-minute candles above the opening price, or are those back-to-back closes below the opening price? And then on Google, want just a little stat on Google. Yesterday it never moved more than $2.76 above the opening price, and then it sold off. So want to see if it's able to move greater than $2.76 above the opening price to signal that it has the ability to do something it didn't do yesterday, which is maybe trade higher. And on Amazon, one of those stats is it never closed greater than 20 cents above the opening price. So opening prices are very important to me. When the bell rings at 9:30, I'll jot down the opening prices on the main stocks I'm watching. So then that way, as the first couple seconds and minutes play out, I've trained myself to key in on that open price and see, is the stock closing above it, below it, is it extending above it, below it, etc. Just making a little note here, 924, Apple still flat. But it's near yesterday's low of day, which was 424.43. So to me, that's, net bearish overall. Or just viewing my orders pre-market, making sure that I don't have any orders in by mistake, because that has definitely happened before. All of a sudden you refresh your portfolio and you're sitting on something that's down 20% right off the bat because you didn't check. So that's just a silly mistake to make, which is why I always check. So kind of keyed in on Google and Apple here. You can see this is the downtrend off of 485 from, middle of February that Apple's just been stuck under. Right now that downtrend line's at about 434. This is a 60-minute chart. Google is super bullish if it can continue to hold on to this, $8 gap on the stock. That's definitely a big move. So if it can keep holding on to those gains, that bodes very well going into tomorrow, in my opinion. Apple, really nice sells here as we get closer to the bell. Opening below yesterday's low of day. It's definitely bearish. Still got to see what shakes out though, because volume is still low. So a couple seconds here before the open. See what we get. $422 to $424 is really key support to me on Apple, above that 420 level. So 424.48 open. No extension. Took a starter on the puts using my stop loss, just above 425-ish. $425.17 would be greater than 69 cents above the open, so that's a nice level to watch. But it looks like we can target a 422 test here. I'm in puts. I got the 425 puts at a 440 average. So we moved greater than $1 below the open, but not greater than $1.56 below it. So it could be kind of neutral here. Let's see what shapes up. Crossing back above 424. Don't like that on the bearish side. Definitely want to see it stay rejected here. Volume pace is so-so. About 400,000 shares on the 3-minute open. Not great, not terribly low either. So we'll see. So closed our first 3-minute candle at 423.39. Want to see some 422 prints here to keep that 420 target intact. Still trying to hold that 423. This is good. Printing some 422.80s. Good stuff on the short side here. Got to keep it going. Just keep on coming down. Don't like this bounce here, but it's okay as long as we keep getting rejected, at that 424-ish level. Definitely want to come back below 423 here. Need to see some 422.50s. Should definitely start kind of flushing here, so I don't want to see it continue to hold this level. Otherwise, I'm going to exit these puts. Nice 8K seller, 422.95. Let's see if we get some new low of days off of that. All right, printing low of days here. Let's get some 422.50s. That'd be great. Not really flushing still. I don't like how it's not flushing. Had a big seller there, so I'm all out of those puts. I will reevaluate. Gonna make a little note. No. Just how it's, our volume pace is kind of getting lower also. We need it to stay high. Notice our 15-minute volume pace is on pace to be much lower than yesterday's. Let's get a little checkup on Google. So Google opened at 834.84, was never able to move greater than $2.76 above the open, as stated that I kind of wanted to see it do. Amazon, another one, couldn't move above the open as much as it needed to do in terms of my criteria. So now I'm kind of watching yesterday's low at 271.87 on Amazon for a decent risk-reward trade. Apple, as much, I wanted to see it flush, and that's not happening, but it is staying down here near the lows, which is, overall bearish. So if we do start getting some 422.50s or so, that would be a good sign that we can target that 420 level. But the way all right, see another one there where it's putting in some 422.50s, but right back above 423. So definite buying going on down here, kind of absorbing the selling that is going on. So kind of got to be patient and pick the spot. Remember, 422 to 424 was the support level I said needed to crack. So not really surprising that it does have, that it isn't really flushing down here. I do harp on the fact, though, that it's certainly not getting off the mat. And if you look at the first 3-minute low of 423.27, it's struggling with that low. So 423.37 rejects are bearish. Now we're starting to drop with some consistency here. Need to keep getting rejected at that 423.37 level. I'm back in the short trade for a little bit on the 420 puts at a 275-ish average. Got to use a tight stop here. Don't want to be jumping the gun too much. This is a good crack here, printing some low 422s. Need to keep it going lower. My gut's just kind of telling me to stay out right now, this trade. So I'm just out. Took a small loss on that. But I just feel a little iffy here that it's not breaking 422 yet. Especially after it did a good job of coming all the way down there. Okay, and you can see now we're trying to break above that previous 3-minute candle's high. Yesterday that was signaling bounces anytime you broke above the previous 3-minute candle's high. So obviously glad I got out with the small loss, because that $100 loss would have been a $300 loss if I was still in, and now maybe I can get a better entry. Now it did get rejected trying to close above it. Again, that 423.27 level is kind of where we're at. Trading in a tight range within the first 15 minutes of the day. So need to make note of that. First 15-minute close at 422.90. And overall, we've just traded in a $2.65 range. One of the bullish signals will be if Apple can register a close that is $1 greater than the initial 15-minute close. So that would be 423.90. Also, our first 15-minute volume was only 1.4 million shares, so lower than usual, at least compared to the last couple days. Not a whole lot of good trades here at the outset. You know, Google didn't really meet its bullish criteria. Apple not giving a lot of range and volume. And Amazon, you know, didn't meet its criteria either, and volume is also pretty low there. So that last 3-minute candle failed to close above the high of the previous 3-minute candle. So the bounce signal has not yet gone off. We also got rejected at that first 3-minute low, which has been good shorts. Could just be more of a slower grind down today on Apple. Putting in new lows here. Really need some 421 prints. Okay. Might have to do some chasing. See if we get a little bounce here. going to start kind of averaging in here. Got some bids, got a bid at 530. See if we can get filled on some bounces. Well, not really given the bounce needed. Man, this thing. All right, got back a little starter at 580. And I will average down if it lets me, but its volume is picking up nicely, although we're still not doing greater than 200K on the 3-minute volume pace. Would have worked out well had I stayed in the initial position, but it is what it is. Whether it's today or tomorrow, I believe Apple's definitely setting up to hit 415 by the end of the week. I've got another bid in here at 530 on the puts. Going to throw one in at 555 also, 550. So got filled the 550 bid. Got my other bid in 530. Just picking up 2 cons. You know, keeping positions small because it's not really giving great range or volume. But because of the price itself, just, you know, being so close to that 420, I do think this is a setup where, you know, it could stay under pressure and trade weekly and then gap down tomorrow. Google back up at 834, Amazon 273s, seeing that up there. All right, got back to 530s here. Overall, I still want to see stall outs, you know, at this first low, first 3-minute low, and ideally, you know, we stall out where these bounces were happening, which is like 422.50. So I'm going to make a little note. 954. Stop loss zone 422.50 to 423.37-ish. 423.37. Remember, that's the initial low. First 3-minute low. So we've got 5 cons at 554 average. See if Apple can't test 420. Maybe sell these for 650 or so. Just kind of a slower churn day on Apple. You know, not a ton of volatility, but the direction is lower. So gonna just kind of try and be more patient here and take my notes and stick with my criteria on the short side and not get shaken out on my short trade unless my stop loss zone, gets triggered. That's why I like writing things down, so I can kind of watch the action, watch what's going on, and while I might be indecisive in what I'm watching, I can then refer to the notes I took and say, oh, okay, it still hasn't even moved above your stop loss, so just chill out, just let it do what it wants to do. And in the meantime, when it does move into the stop loss zone, but doesn't necessarily trigger it all together. Okay, got a 10K bid there, 422.37. That's kind of when I average into my position. So bidding for another contract at 515, see if I get a fill. All right, so filled the 515, testing, moving into that stop loss zone. Got some fills down here. Got another bid in at 490, and then that'll do it. And then it's just a matter of, do I get stopped out or not? So 7 contracts at a 540 average right now. Still haven't had a 3-minute candle go above the prior 3-minute candle's high. Did get a nice wick down here though, and volume is dropping off somewhat. But again, we've identified that from the outset that volume was kind of low. So took out that 10K bidder, coming back down near towards 422. So we got some ads in the stop loss zone, not a lot. Still, obviously it's still just doing its thing. Low volume churn, as expected. More of a boring type of trading day, but you have to adjust to what the day is giving you and kind of strategize around that. You're not going to be able to make, 30 trades every day. Some days you're only going to be able to make a couple trades on your favorite stock, such as today. Just kind of got to take what it's giving you and stay disciplined, which is what I'm trying to do. So it's another AK bidder just got whacked out at 451.60. Want to see a low a day test and break. All right, there's our new low a day. On our way to a 420 test here, hopefully for our short trade. But again, it's been making new low a days, then kind of bouncing and going sideways. Hasn't really been flushing, a dollar at a time. I definitely want to see it kind of start getting rejected on these 422s. If it can, want to see kind of it make a new low a day here. And then, I'm looking to take profits here because it's had a tendency of bouncing after these new low a days. So I'm all out at that move down to a, approach the low a day. And the reason I took profits on that one is because each time it's been making a low a day, it's been bouncing back up and then going sideways a little bit. You can see that here at 942, made a low a day, then bounced and went sideways. Then we made another new low a day. 951 bounced a little bit, went sideways. Here we are making another new low a day. So if the continued trend plays out, we should bounce here, go sideways, and then move lower again. In which case, I'll look to get back into these. Overall, it's more of a channel, sideways type trading day on Apple. That's kind of what I've been talking about. But, on a day like this, you make 500 bucks or so, 2 winners, 1 loser. And, I never used more than a $4,000 principal. That's pretty solid. It's pretty solid, especially if you've had a good week overall. Once you get to the end of the week, you certainly don't want to be giving back gains from earlier in the week. So you can see, as stated just a moment ago, low a day, bounce, sideways, continuing to play out. So let's see if we can, maybe get back in here in the 550s or so. Keep my position small as not to give back any gains. In the meantime, Google 832.90, keeping an eye on that. Amazon 270.270. So the other 2 stocks I was really looking to trade today, still not doing much of anything. Also on Apple, haven't had 3 candles up in a row all day. So to me, this is a decent little entry here. Got one back at 570. Trying to close above the previous, didn't do it. So didn't close above the previous 3-minute candles high. So bidding one at 565. Got a fill there. And now I really want to see rejections at 422. It's kind of for my stop loss. Nice move lower, see what our average is. 567.50. See if we get a new low a day here to take profits at. It's continuing to play out similarly, but definitely want to see it close below 421.62, as that was the previous 3-minute candles close, and we haven't had 3 up candles in a row all day, so don't want to see that for the sake of the bearish trade here. So kind of testing that 422 level still. Need to continue to see rejections at this level. All right, here's our test. This is what determines if I get stopped out or not. This action on the test. I like averaging in at my stop, so that way if I don't get stopped out, now I have a very good average to work with. All right, we're about to get stopped. See how many cons we got here. 6 cons at a 540 average. Need to come back below 522. So kind of stalling here, which I like. Still need to see it come back below 422. All right. It's trying to bust a move, but it keeps struggling. Getting testy on the stop here. Taking a little risk. Could have got stopped out right there, but I kind of hesitated. And when I hesitate, I feel like there's a reason I'm hesitating, and I should maybe trust myself a little bit more. So going to see kind of what plays out here. And obviously the risk, though, when you hesitate is that if you're wrong, now the $200 loss, now that turns into a $400 loss. And that's just kind of, something you learn with your own style. You can't really teach that or learn it from other people. You just kind of got to learn it for yourself. So still in these 425 puts, 6 of them at a 540 average. So testing that 422 again. The longer it keeps holding this 422, the worse it is for the short trade. I'll give it another 2 minutes or so, and if we're not below 422, then I'm just going to go ahead and get out. All right, there we go. There's a nice break right there. So I sold on that breakdown into the 421s, nice little flush. Again, the reason I'm selling is because every time it's kind of broken down, it has had a tendency to make another pop. And just based on the way everything was going, I didn't like how long it was taken to move lower. And I combine that with making good trades at the outset, and I'm not going to give up my gains on the day. I'm thinking that tomorrow could be a much better trading day for Apple based on this activity. So I'm not going to sour my mood by, being a bonehead today when there's still another quarter to go. I like to think of the week as a game, and break it down into quarters. I've had a good first quarter, second quarter. Now I'm at that third, fourth quarter. I need to maintain myself so that way I can close the fourth quarter strong as well. You don't want to set yourself back in the middle of the game and now you're trying to make up for it in the fourth quarter.